Welcome to the Wow MD podcast, where in each episode you will get in 30 minutes or less valuable pearls about holistic wellness, anti-aging, hormone therapies, beauty trends, and other facts you should know about our medical healthcare system and your health that no one is telling you. My name is Dr. Mirala Chernayanu. I am a conventional board-certified OBGYN physician who, after the loss of my father due to a careless and uncaring medical team, decided to retrain and seek certification in anti-aging and restorative therapies. What I know, I am happy to share with you. Hello, dear listener, and thank you for joining me on an episode that is launching on July 4. So in the honor of Independence Day, I kind of thought about the theme of the podcast for today, and I took some notes, and a lot of my podcast notes are recorded on my cell phone while I walk my dog in the morning. I walk her for about 2 hours, so I have lots of time to record notes. So interesting thing, when I tallied up all the notes I recorded with the topic of being independently healthy in mind, which I wanted to launch on July 4, there's like about 20 pages. So there's a lot of notes, and I really have to shorten this up. So I'm making it into a 2-part series, but again, there's lots to say about this subject. So I want to start by explaining a little bit about being independently healthy, what it is. And the idea came to me because many people talk about being independently wealthy. And I'm not sure if everyone that's listening to the podcast, every single one of you knows the meaning of being independently wealthy, but it's very clear and very easy to find. You just Google the definition. And it means possessing enough wealth that one does not need financial support from others or income from employment. Well, you can still be independently wealthy and have income from employment. There's a lot of people who have a lot of money who actually work because they love what they do. But what if we talk about being independently healthy? What would that mean? Well, in a similar manner, if you Google it, it states very simply that health independence, and I quote here, is an individual's ability to maintain their physical and mental well-being without relying heavily on any external support. So how do we become independently wealthy? Well, apparently you have to work hard, or you work very little, it doesn't really matter, as long as you're able to accumulate goods and resources that are valuable. But it all starts with making money. How do you make money? You broaden your education and skill set, you find a good paying job, you start saving early and aggressively, maybe you start a business, you avoid debt, maybe you consider and set up multiple streams of revenue like owning real estate and renting it, writing a book and selling it, expanding your business if you have one, etc. But this, for many folks, it means just simply having 2 jobs and working hard so that their family can live comfortably and their children can get an education. I'm not going to bore you with the fact that it takes about $2 to $2.5 million for someone to be considered independently wealthy. You can find that number on Google, on the internet. What is absolutely fascinating to me is the fact that it is estimated that only 1.8% of households have that amount saved. So the clear pathway to being rich seems very simple and available to everyone. You know you should save money, but no one seems to want to do it. Everyone lives from today to tomorrow without worrying too much about far into the future when illness or age would render one incapable of working. And when you, at that point, should rely solely on safe retirement funds. Similarly, it seems to me that everyone knows what it takes to be independently healthy. Eat well, exercise regularly, manage or avoid stress, take vitamins, sleep soundly 7 to 8 hours a night. So it seems simple, right? Then how come 60% of Americans suffer from at least one chronic illness? And 40% of Americans suffer from 2 or more chronic illnesses. How do we explain the fact that 40% of Americans are obese? And 3 out of 4 Americans are either overweight or obese. How come almost 25%, which is 1 in 4 Americans, suffer from chronic pain? And how come almost 25% of all living Americans live with mental illness? Coming back to the finance stuff, people in the investment world that invest your money talk a lot about how to be independently wealthy and what it means. Well, it means you're wealthy in a way that allows you a steady stream of income no matter what. No matter if you have a job, you don't have a job. No matter if the markets are tanking or they're up. It means you do not depend on someone else or something. But it does rely on your ability to produce the funds and the money to either get you to that level or to keep you independently wealthy. It means you have to make a large amount of money from a job that pays very well, that you can count on, or you own a business that provides this income for you, and it is your source of wealth. If you are in neither of these 2 categories, then you are likely not independently wealthy, and that is probably the case for the overwhelming large majority of not just the United States, but the entire world. You're not alone. But if you have a little chance of being independently wealthy, and that's hard and out of reach, can you at least be independently healthy? What would it look like to not depend on someone else to keep you in a state of health that allows you to do your job, to live your daily life? What would that look like? Just to be very objective and just put this out there, most likely it's very, very easy to be independently healthy when you are young, under the 30s limit, because you have everything you need, including your hormones. You have youth on your side. Unfortunately, as you get older and your hormones decline to being a complete loss for women in menopause, as well as for men over 50 who suffer from an epidemic of low testosterone, at this point, being independently healthy takes a very different meaning, as you now realize you need some degree of help to keep you functionally strong and able-bodied so that you can work and live your life at its fullest. Doesn't mean you cannot be independently healthy as you get older. So my question for you and for this podcast topic is, do you understand the role of your health insurance plan in keeping you healthy? Do you understand your responsibility in keeping you healthy? Do you know your doctor's role in keeping you healthy? Are you thinking ahead and budgeting or planning for the time when you will need that extra cushion of medical care and medical expenses that will allow you to remain or get back on track by being independently healthy? Let me ask you this very obvious question. If it is so easy to be independently rich, everybody has a very easy answer. Hey, you can be rich by doing blah, 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 blah. Then how come very few people are rich? If it is easy to be independently healthy in a similar fashion, right? Eat well, regularly exercise, sleep well, avoid stress, etc., then how come the majority of Americans are sick? How valuable is the current healthcare insurance system to keeping people healthy? Does it have any value at all? Or is it simply a way to avoid financial bankruptcy when you're confronted with a huge expense for surgery, for cancer, for broken bones and joints that require replacement, for a heart attack, stroke, etc.? What if you understood that the medical insurance company that you pay of your choice an exorbitant monthly premium for is not there to make you independently healthy? What would happen if you actually understood that instead of buying an expensive plan means literally throwing money into a black hole in which they are never going to emerge from again, the black hole being your monthly premium? What if instead you shop around for a plan that is much cheaper with less coverage, mainly offering you coverage for major expenses, but, there is a but, listen to this please, instead you take that difference, you set it aside month after month, year after year, so that when you want it and when you need it, you are covered for the unexpected. And the much needed but not always covered, maybe never covered, cost of remaining independently healthy. If you're not sure what I just asked, stop, rewind, and replay the question again. Let me just give you a small example. The unexpected that I'm referring to might be something you have never considered. For example, menopause for a woman. Menopause is a drastic change in a woman's life, a drastic change in their energy, in their mood, in their mental clarity, a drastic change in their weight or ability to maintain their weight, a drastic change in their health, cardiovascular health at the core of it, and a drastic change in their looks. If you're a woman in menopause, you know what I'm talking about. If you're a woman that's approaching menopause, then you already started to feel a little bit of what I'm talking about. If you're a man that's married to a woman who is now in her mid to late 40s, or married to a woman in menopause, then you also know what I'm talking about. Many women choose a modality of hormone replacement therapy not because it would be best suited for them, or because it would give them the best quality of life and the best results, or because it would give them the most relief from their symptoms, and at the same time improve quality of life, but because they can afford it. Many women, if not all women, have not thought about the fact that menopause treatment might not be covered by their medical insurance plan. So they simply do not budget or plan for it. Yes, medical insurance covers the estradiol gel, the estradiol patch, but what do you do if none of these two options work for you? What do you do when now you need bioidentical compounded therapy? What do you do when nothing works and you need pellet therapy? How are you going to get back to normal and live your life again at its fullest if you cannot afford the treatment that will get you there? Menopause can change a woman's life in a way that will make it impossible for her to remain independently healthy. The loss of estrogen is so impactful for so many women that it is literally the straw that breaks the camel's back and spurs on a deterioration and steady decline in their health, physical, mental, and emotional, and their ability to work effectively and live life joyfully. And I'm not saying this because menopause is this doomsday case scenario for all women, but I'm saying it because it is the doomsday case scenario for the majority of the women who come to see me. They all go through this and they all need help. Everyone knows and everyone agrees that the medical system, the current system of medical insurance in the United States is broken. Some argue that it's broken beyond repair. So it will need to be revamped and reimagined. I think people need to wake up. And now that the penalty tax of not having medical insurance has been lifted, people really need to think ahead and budget for their medical expenses outside of what medical insurance covers. Why? Because medical insurance covers very little. A significant amount of patients choose to get Kaiser insurance, maybe because it's the only thing their job offers, or some other form of HMO insurance. And they end up paying out of pocket to go see doctors outside of Kaiser or outside of their HMO network, a concierge doctor perhaps, for a variety and multitude of reasons. But mainly because the doctor that's in network with the HMO organization and the Kaiser doctors do not have the time to spend with you to understand the actual problem and how can it be solved to your satisfaction. And they ultimately do not achieve a meaningful cure for any medical condition. They don't have time. So they're going to tell you, hey, your blood pressure is high today. Let me write a prescription for blood pressure medication. Hey, you have some abnormal bleeding and you're in perimenopause. Let me prescribe a birth control pill and come back in 3 months to see how that goes. Also, because it is very difficult to get an appointment with a doctor that's in an HMO organization. And then, of course, you have to wait for approvals and authorizations for further testing, procedures, medications, or treatments. And now they're mandated by law to give you the approval within 72 hours to 7 business days, I think, or something like that. But you still have to wait months to get an appointment with a doctor, to the point where many patients are just like, doctor, let me pay cash. I'll pay you cash. I don't want to go to my Kaiser doctor and get the orders to go and have them do the labs. I'll pay the labs here. I just want to do it. Many patients know and understand this, if they're choosing Kaiser or HMO, they are smart enough to know and understand what they're getting into. And they budget for out-of-pocket medical expenses. They never argue, hey, I understand I'm cash. This is what I want. Please tell me how much does it cost? I'll pay for it. These category of patients are much closer to being independently healthy. Again, this refers to some kind of finance thing, than another someone who spends a ton of money on a very expensive plan, a plan who ends up not covering any of the much needed and available medical treatments, like laser therapy, shockwave therapy, IV therapy, hormone therapy, etc., and they budget nothing for not covered expenses. Now, this might be an exaggerated analogy, but I was walking the dog and dictating notes and thinking about all this very interesting subject, and then it reminded me of something. The medical insurance plan and the way they're sold and touted as, by us, choose this plan, we're going to be with you, and your health is going to be so much better, and we pay, and we got you covered, and you save money, blah, blah, blah. It literally reminds me of a vacation timeshare sales scam. Now, I used to have a timeshare that I literally got conned and pressured into buying. I didn't know any better. I was young. I had just finished residency a few years before. I was making money. Of course, I was investing. The maximum amount I was allowed to invest, I was investing. But I didn't really know what to do with the surplus. I was single. I wasn't married. I didn't have a family. I didn't have a dog. So I thought buying a timeshare, it's a good investment. If you don't know what a timeshare is, it's 1 week of vacation every year in a location that's desirable to you, that you agreed to pay for. And yes, it seems to be too good to be true. The maintenance fees are all you pay for the lifetime of the timeshare. Well, good luck getting out of it. It's a very difficult process. It's something you get saddled with. And eventually, what will happen if you can't go on vacation, which is what happened to me? I was an employed doctor for a long time. I used to have 3 weeks of vacation. And trust me, I used it every year. But when I became self-employed and started my own practice, I stopped going on vacation. I couldn't afford it. I didn't go on vacation for almost 5 years. I ended up not using my timeshare for 7 years before I was actually able to get rid of it. So if you've ever attended one of those sales, imagine you would be invited to a beautifully nice catered buffet. It's a room full of hundreds of people. You get a chat with a representative from the insurance plan after the presentation. They tell you all about the beautiful benefits you can get. It shows you all the catastrophic circumstances that could be extremely painful for your wallet and for your health. And should you ever have an accident, have a heart attack, require expensive hospitalization in the ICU, you need a hip replacement, etc., you get my drift. You hear all this, and then you start browsing around. You start talking to the representatives of the plan who are at the table, ready to take your signature and sign you up. And then you start asking about various things of interest to you, like menopause therapy. Well, that's going to be covered under the Plan 68, paragraph number 14. It depends. We only cover a certain amount and a certain type of hormones. It will have to be reviewed, and if your doctor has to agree, you have to have a specific diagnosis applied to you, then it should be covered, but without the right diagnosis, it won't. You're like, what? What about laser therapy? Oh yeah, we don't cover any laser therapy. Laser therapy is considered experimental. It's not approved for any medical treatment. All right, what about peptide therapy? Well, as you know, peptide therapy is new, it's controversial, totally experimental. There's not enough human studies to become standard of care, so no, it's not covered. Well, what about vitamins? Well, no, vitamins are not covered because they're very low-cost expense anybody can afford, and it's really not clear to us whether or not vitamin therapy is necessary. You have to have a certain medical condition, should be documented by your physician, that requires vitamin therapy in order for vitamin therapy to be covered. But no, as a general rule, vitamins are not covered. What about genetic cancer testing? Is that covered? Well, genetic cancer testing is also somewhat experimental. It's not clear that it will be of any benefit to you. And if you find out you have any cancer already, what's the point? But the plan can cover testing for clearly qualified patients. Well, how do I know if I'm a qualified patient? Well, you have to file this very detailed questionnaire that's going to ask you a lot of questions about your medical history and family history. But generally, expect the test is likely not to be covered unless you meet very specific conditions. What if I have a specialized condition that requires an out-of-network specialist? Well, no, we don't cover any out-of-network specialist, or we would cover out-of-network at a much lower percentage than the network providers. It will cost you a lot more money. So it is recommended you find an in-network provider to address your condition. And so on and so forth. You get where I'm going with this. All the great medical stuff that's preventive, healthy, holistic, it's not going to be covered. But hey, if you have a heart attack, you are covered. Well, who wants to wait for the heart attack to get covered? Well, if you need a joint replaced, you are covered. But who wants to wait for their joint disease to get so bad that they actually need a joint replacement? If, God forbid, you end up in ICU with sepsis from a really bad infection, then you're covered. If you have a stroke, you're covered. Well, who wants to wait to get a stroke? You really want to assess cardiovascular risk. You want to take preventive care measures. You want to talk to someone about nutrition. You want to have a fitness coach. Are any of these covered to prevent a stroke? No. Well, if you develop cancer, some services, hopefully the bulk of it, would be covered. But who wants to wait to get cancer to be covered? You want to get tested for things that could possibly lead to cancer. You want to get tested for things that would tell you, hey, you're on the path for inflammation, chronic inflammation, dysfunction. And if we're not careful, this can lead in this bad box that we don't want to ever get into. But in a nutshell, those are all the things that you buy insurance for, and you hope you never have to use it. Don't believe for 1 second that you buy insurance for all the other stuff that I mentioned before, the holistic, nice, anti-aging, healthy stuff, and don't think it will be covered, because it will not be covered, with maybe very few exceptions. Even if you call the insurance plan and they tell you this specific therapy is covered, let me use the example of pellet hormone therapy, you might find out it's only covered for men and only for a limited dose, which is actually what Medicare allows. Medicare allows 450 milligrams of testosterone, no more, in the form of a pellet, and the covered individual can only have this therapy every 3 or 4 months, I forget which. So guess what? 450 milligrams of testosterone will raise someone's testosterone from 300 to maybe 400 plus, 500 maximum, and that's not going to last the whole 3 months. But the key issue is, you think, well, 300 to 500 is something, right? No, it's not. This small raise in testosterone levels will not translate into meaningful improvement clinically. However, raising testosterone to a level over 800, which is in an optimal range, will create a significant improvement in someone's energy, mental clarity, mood, stress endurance, and improvement in their motivation to exercise, their stamina while exercising, their recovery post-exercise, their anabolic versus catabolic rate balance, which will lead to better weight management over time. And last but not least, improving mental health and sexual wellness. Now, that's another podcast for another day. It refers to optimization and optimizing the level of a hormone, of a vitamin, a mineral, a biological marker, rather than allowing the body to carry on in a barely survival mode or survival fashion, which is what's going to happen if your numbers for that marker, that hormone, that vitamin, that mineral are at the bottom of what's considered normal interval for that marker, hormone, mineral, or vitamin. Again, stay tuned. I plan to record this podcast episode in the near future. The timeshare sales, coming back to that, are notorious for being extremely sleazy. Right now, I believe that just like the timeshare industry, our healthcare industry has rather a bad reputation due to how overpromised and underdelivered are their services and their so-called benefits. And you should see me, I'm doing the end quotes and moving my 2 fingers up and down, right? You make a contract with the timeshare company to pay them for the entire rest of your life a monthly maintenance fee, which is guaranteed to cover you for a week, a year in the location of your choice. Even though they don't tell you that that maintenance fee in 10 years is going to be double compared to what you signed up for. You also don't take into account the fact that life circumstances might not allow you to use the timeshare whenever and however you thought you will use it, the way you desire to use it, therefore rendering it useless. Of course, you can turn it into points, rent it, might only cover your annual expenses. You definitely won't make a profit out of it. So you better pick a location and the time of the year when you know you want to travel at that destination if that's going to work for you, and that's the only reason why you would do it. For example, you might make a commitment that you're going to spend Christmas in Hawaii every year, and if that's the case, it makes sense that you might want to save some money and buy a timeshare. But otherwise, no, it's a no-go. Timeshare, it's a huge expense over time with little to very moderate rewards. Just like you buy insurance and you hope that it's going to cover your most expensive healthcare costs for that year and save you money, you buy a timeshare hoping you will enjoy that beautiful week, have a lot of fun, save a lot of money because your monthly maintenance fee over the year amounts to about $4,000, whereas staying at that resort for that week would have cost you more than double. On the other hand, if you don't get to use your timeshare, then the money you spent on maintenance fees was a useless expense and a huge loss. If you pay a premium of, let's say, $1,000 a month for a health insurance plan that's going to cost you $12,000 a year, and at the end of the year, that insurance plan paid about $4,000 in expenses for your healthcare needs, then you technically lost $8,000. You could have saved your $8,000 and spent it somewhere else, and the $4,000 could have been spent on true, holistic, anti-aging, hormonal replacement therapies and testing that could have made a much bigger impact on your ability to become and remain independently healthy. Now, I'm not going to say this is the way to go. Go bare, no insurance, save your money, because that's not what this episode is about. I'll come back next week and discuss more about healthcare savings plans, which might be the way to go and hopefully will be a very viable alternative in the future for many clients. And maybe this is the only way health insurance plans should be structured. But coming back to the financial part of being independently healthy, I honestly believe very few people budget for anything in life beyond housing, mortgage or rent, the monthly car costs, electric phone bill, and obviously food. Maybe you budget for vacation, but what's interesting is that many people budget for vacation and they think about vacation and where they're going to go. No one budgets for healthcare beyond how much it costs to buy and pay for the health insurance. Coming back to the vacation budgeting, many people budget, think about how much it's going to cost them to vacation, but it's mind-boggling that they do not give any thought to the fact that they need to save money and have money put aside for not just unexpected medical expenses, but expected medical expenses. Let me explain what I mean by that. Most people elect to pay for an insurance plan that gives them certain benefits, but only with a very high deductible, $3,000 or more. Most of them are actually over $5,000. I've seen deductibles that are $8,000, maybe $10,000. When you buy this plan, you should ask yourself immediately, do I have $5,000 lying around at the ready for my deductible? Because that is what you sign up for. You sign up for paying $5,000 before health coverage is allowed, and that's allowed at 70 to 90% coverage only, depending on your plan. And many not only have to pay that $5,000, but believe me, you have to pay that 20% of the $40,000 bill, which is $8,000, which would be your portion of an expensive hospital stay for surgery or heart attack. Again, this is just an example. Doesn't mean this is the actual cost for these medical conditions, which is likely much higher. So when everything costs so much, how can you avoid needing to spend more money on being independently healthy? What can you do without paying a large cost annually on top of your expensive premium? Well, I mentioned a little bit about eating healthy, regularly exercising, and stuff like that, but these are indeed very simple things you can do, and they are only up to you. And yes, you have to need to live a very healthy lifestyle. You have to exercise daily, no excuses. Not 3 times a week, not 4 times a week, not 5 times a week, but daily. Our body is made to move. It doesn't have to be the same form of exercise every day. It could be simply walking the dog every day, but it has to be more than that if that is your only form of exercise. You can't just walk the dog. You have to get some classes, you have to use some weights, you have to do a little bit more. Number 2, you have to eat a healthy diet. I'm not going to dwell on the subject. I have spent a lot of time and energy last year talking about diet and foods. I have lots of episodes about that. I explain why and how we are addicted to our diet and why restaurant food and processed foods are so bad for us. The only warning I like to give you on this subject is the simple fact that you could eat the most perfect, nourishing, healthy foods in the world. If you have developed food sensitivities due to a leaky intestinal barrier, those foods are not going to heal you or keep you healthy as you expect, but instead possibly cause further harm as you eat them. How do you know if you have food sensitivities? That's another topic for another day and an excellent one for a podcast, so stay tuned. So again, eating healthy and exercising every day are no-brainers to a healthy lifestyle that's going to keep you independently healthy. What about stress? Well, stress kills us and it doesn't kill us quickly. Unless you have bad news and a heart attack and you die, that's the only way we'll do that. It kills us slowly. We know stress leads to chronic disease like hypertension, stroke, heart attack, diabetes, hormone imbalances, digestive issues, inflammation, and cancer, as well as mental illness. Scroll through my podcast episodes, find the one where I describe the 10 ways stress kills us slowly. There's much more information there about that. Stress management would extend into a multitude of episodes. I'm really not a qualified mental health professional. I'm not going to go there today. But guess what? You can manage your stress with healthy exercise, meditation, yoga, sleep hygiene, and simply by eliminating the toxic people in your life. Now, this was 1, 2, 3. Exercise, diet, and stress. Number 4, if you want to be independently healthy, you will need to sleep a minimum of good 7 hours. And ideally, that would be uninterrupted sleep. You go to bed and you wake up in the morning, ready, set, go. If that's not you, and you don't get the uninterrupted 7 hours every night, then please beware of consequences. Our body is a very sophisticated biological system with an outstanding multitude of enzymatic reactions that happen every day, hour by hour, minute by minute, second by second, that are necessary to allow each organ and system to function properly. So these things don't just shut down when you go to bed. They keep going. We, as individual biological organisms, cannot address inflammation. Even though we're equipped to the pathways to do so, we cannot repair and rebuild damaged tissue or have the necessary energetic needs for the body to do all this repair and rebuilding and retooling unless we sleep. There are so many people who are unable to get 6 to 7 hours of sleep every night without interruption. If not the great majority of people who are listening to this podcast, there are so many. Pretty much everyone that I talk to on a daily basis as a patient says, I can't sleep. Our adrenergic system for the HPA axis, hypothalamo-pituitary-adrenal axis, is responsible for keeping us awake and alert. Our parasympathetic system does the opposite. It is responsible for our body to rest and digest. Probably one of the most widespread consequences of our busy 21st century life, surrounded by screens, electronic devices, with so many demands on problem solving, is the persistent and continuous activation, day in, day out, of our HPA energetic system over our parasympathetic system. Therefore, people are wired but persistently tired, with the inability to sleep, and with serious digestive issues because it is always fight or flight instead of rest and digest. If you understand this simple fact and you can take the time to do some introspection and analyze your daily life, your daily habits, your daily goals, and simply identify what keeps you in this wired but tired state of being, you will get one step closer to being independently healthy. I certainly appreciate your patience and hanging in there, listening to me discussing ways for achieving independence of your health from the current medical system. Next week, I want to continue this conversation about possible reasons why people live in this constant fight or flight response, which is one of the key issues of not being able to be independently healthy. I also want to talk a little bit about what is a medical covered expense, what is preventive care coverage, the benefit of investing in the best treatment available, not simply just what is covered, as well as discuss why most physicians are opting out of accepting your very expensive health plan and demanding that you pay a concierge fee if you want to use your plan. So please join me next week as I continue this, what I hope to be a very valuable conversation for you. Thank you for trusting me with your time, and thank you for listening to today's episode. If the content I provided wowed you, was helpful and valuable to either you or someone close to you, please do me a favor and leave me a review. I am very open and welcome any kind of feedback as well as suggestions on any content ideas. So please forward those suggestions to Jessica, my patient care coordinator, through our website, herabeautyandwellness.com. And I look forward to our time together next episode.